Welcome to Globe Watch with me, Charles Ebune. Either you are with us or you are against us. Those are the words of President George W. Bush after the September 11, 2001 attacks against the United States of America. That statement alone was considered as the hallmark of American arrogance across the world par excellence, forcing the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, to conclude in 2009 in a program called Intelligence Squared Debate that George W. Bush was the worst U.S. president for the last 50 years. I wonder if the British Broadcasting Corporation can hold the same debate today, as leaders across the world are increasingly being confronted by the terrorism challenge. So are those of the Central Africa sub-region, meeting in Yaoundé in the course of the week and have taken strong commitments to make Boko Haram history. What will be the role of the United Nations organization, which is going to pass a resolution to support their missions, financial, economic, and diplomatic? My guest today on Globe Watch is Ban Ki-moon's special representative to the Central Africa sub-region. Ban Ki-moon's special representative to Central Africa, Abdoulaye Bathily. Welcome to Globe Watch.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to your viewers.
As the head of the United Nations in Central Africa, what is your first priority as we speak?
Well, as you know, the first priority today, as from the yesterday's summit, is Boko Haram. Boko Haram from Nigeria is spreading like a cancer into the sub-region of Central Africa, mainly Cameroon and, of course, Chad, and in the Lake Chad Basin area.
Okay.
So this is a very daunting challenge for most countries of the region. And as President Paul Biya has said, it has to be eradicated. There is no compromise possible with this movement, which aim is to destroy the states in the region, to destroy the societies, to destroy their economy, to turn upside down the whole social fabric of a country, of a region.
You just said that Boko Haram is the priority, and that goes back to the cardinal missions of the United Nations, ensuring peace and security of communities across the world. Your predecessor, Abu Musa, used to be guest on this program. And when I asked him a question when the troubles started in the Central African Republic, I asked him just how many times he was speaking with Ban Ki-moon, and he told me that he was with Ban Ki-moon on the phone nearly or on a daily basis. Do you talk with the UN Secretary General, you two, nearly on a daily basis concerning Boko Haram?
I wouldn't say on a daily basis, because as head of a mission, of course, I have to monitor the situation.
Just how often do you reach to him vis-a-vis the Boko Haram equation to show that it is serious?
No, you know, there is a focal point in UN headquarters, SRG Special Representative Onanga, who has just been appointed there to monitor with us on the ground the situation as it evolves. Therefore, it's rather a team, rather than just one person, you know, dealing with that.
Okay. Now, tell me, what will be the role of the United Nations in this battle?
Well, I must say that since last October, we have, as we have assessed the situation, we thought that this Boko Haram issue will become one of the main issues in the region. This is why, as early as October, the Bureau, you know, INOCA, that is the United Nations Office for Central Africa, which I head, based in Libreville, we sent a mission to northern Cameroon to assess the situation, to look into all the dimensions of the crisis, be it humanitarian, be displaced people, and the impact of the Boko Haram assault on the community of northern Cameroon. So when we make that report, we sent it to the headquarters, and in December, 10th of December, I presented my report to the Security Council. And I warned the Security Council about the magnitude of this threat as represented by Boko Haram. And the presidential statement on this occasion really stressed the issue of Boko Haram. And when our role as United Nations is to accompany, to support the countries of the region, to support the the African Union. And this is why at the meeting last week here in Yaoundé, we sent technicians, experts who participated with the AU and ECAS experts to define the concept of operation. And the United Nations, of course, stressed the humanitarian dimensions of the crisis, the issues of human rights, and of course we are ready to support at expert level, humanitarian, to look at the human rights dimension.
Mr. Bathily, communities affected by the Boko Haram equation in Nigeria, especially in the northeastern part of Nigeria, especially in the far north region of Cameroon, especially in some parts of Chad and now Niger, who say that meetings after meetings are not sufficient, that they need swift action on the ground to contain first Boko Haram and then subsequently totally eradicate Boko Haram. It seems to me that the soldier equation is going to be not sufficient enough. What other measures will be needed?
Well, as I said, Boko Haram is a terrorist movement.
You described it as a cancer.
It's a cancer. You can't communicate with that movement other than militarily first, to destroy it, to eradicate it. But you have also to look into the root causes of this kind of movement. The issues, because Boko Haram, as I said, destroy the state machinery in the area concerned. The Boko Haram destroy the society. They use children against their parents. They go into villages, kill, for instance, parents in the eyes of their children. And they use women as,
Human shield, yeah, as kamikazes.
As the kamikazes. So all this is having a terrible impact on the society of the area.
Terrible
and
impact.
Therefore we have to look into the social dimension, to the issues of governance, how to reconstitute the social fabric in the area concerned. So this is why it is not only
you are talking
a
about
military solution.
looking at the social fabric of the communities. You know that the principal cause of Boko Haram is corruption. If you have access to any Boko Haram member, they will tell you that they created this as an alternative to end corruption in Nigeria and in most communities across the world. That money was sent to governments. Some of them even dined with politicians. They were sponsored by politicians at the highest level. How do you eradicate such a cancer? With human rights, with democracy?
Well, I think what they said, it's an excuse. If you want to eradicate corruption, you don't destroy the very people whom you want to save. Therefore, I would dispute that as a reason for that. I mean, if the cause is legitimate to eradicate corruption in society, to redress the whatever grievances which have been made against the population, if you want to fight for democracy, for freedom, for liberty, you can't at the same time destroy society, kill, maim people. Therefore, I believe, me as a Democrat, I believe in the fight for democracy peacefully, and this is something which can be.
Let's go back to the conclusions of the meetings in Yaoundé. What concretely was achieved in Yaoundé last Monday, and how would the United Nations be seeing that in the days to come?
Well, the United Nations, as I said, will support whatever measures will be taken by the state concerned. And for instance, the Security Council will be called upon to support the forces which will be put in place. That is the regional forces which is being set up, which the core of which is the Lake Chad basin countries,
Sure.
Chad, Cameroon, and Niger, and Benin. So they are already engaged. The United Nations will be called upon to support this initiative of a force. Maybe a peace fund will be established to support the state.
Already,
but also the humanitarian dimension.
Sure. The leaders have pledged, yes, the leaders have pledged a $50 billion solidarity fund. I understand, they say there will be a conference of donors to raise that funds. How much may be coming from the United Nations, probably?
Well, this I don't know yet. I think they have to assess first what is needed, and therefore this is a subject of discussion among the Security Council members. So at this stage, we don't know exactly. Once the concept of operation is down, which is the case, and the state concerns come up with their what do they need, with their needs, of course, this will be a subject of debate in the council. And you must understand that there are a number of issues already. Central Africa Republic is in a peace process, is in a transition process. They would need money for the elections. They would need money for the DDR, that is for this the peace process to go on. And along with this Boko Haram issue, which is one of the most challenging dimension of a crisis in the Central Africa region.
Mr. Bathily, when I talk to most people along the streets, they tell me that associations like the United Nations are somehow a blockage to eradicating Boko Haram, because you know that Boko Haram does not respect any iota of human value. If Boko Haram have access to you and I, we will simply be strangled, executed like a goat which was to be sacrificed for a ceremony. Don't you think that in this case, we shouldn't talk of human rights, we shouldn't talk of democracy, we shouldn't talk of the rule of law? Probably we should simply storm all those villages and towns where Boko Haram members have settled, because in reality, if Boko Haram comes to a community, those who don't share the Boko Haram ideology simply run away, and those who remain there should simply be calculated as Boko Haram members. It should be simply just a matter of storming and destroying everything.
No, I think we have to be very careful, because when you don't select your targets, you will kill, maim innocent, and give, in fact, an occasion for Boko Haram to enlarge its, what I would say, its constituency.
Okay, they will use torture from the other end to justify their
exactly. This is what
cause.
they do. This is what they do.
Okay.
So we have really to be very selective, and at in any occasion to observe the human rights.
Okay.
Because these are people in the villages, people in the countryside, who have nothing to do with Boko Haram. Some of them have been enlisted by force in the movement, passively or actively. So this is why I said it is not only a military solution.
Okay.
There is a political dimension, there is a cultural dimension, there is a religious dimension. They use religion for that, what they are doing. Yet, for most of the victims, to say, in fact, 90%
About
of the
90%
victims
or
are
95
Muslims.
are Muslims, absolutely.
Muslims. So what they are doing has nothing to do with Islam.
Religion, I agree with you. A majority of victims of Boko Haram are Muslims. You just mentioned the Central African Republic a while ago. You are heading the mission of the United Nations in one of the most stressed regions of the world. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has not known peace since independence in the 1960s, and it is continuing. Currently, as I speak, there is some friction between the United Nations and Congo Kinshasa. The Central African Republic is yet to be stabilized. Now, Boko Haram is adding a new security threat. You should be stressed in handling such a difficult situation.
Yeah, it's a daunting task, but we have to face it. It's a phase in the history of the countries, of these countries. As I said, this new challenge came at a time where most of these countries are attempting to create the conditions of their development. Everywhere you go, be it in Chad, in Cameroon, in the Congos, people, I mean, new
Vision 2035, Vision
so
20,
people are trying to make emerging economies.
Yes.
There is an economic growth which has started. So this movement and these crises at large came to stop all this process of progress.
Okay.
So we have to take that into account, and there is somewhere the necessity of solidarity among the country, because not one country alone can tackle those issues.
Okay.
And this is why I really salute the solidarity which has brought this country together. And this summit is a turning point. It's a watershed in the history of the Central Africa region.
Okay. We are just talking about the Central African Republic. My guest next week on this program will be the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Central African Republic. In an interview which has already been recorded, he told me that the country will need about 44 million CFA francs to have a huge free electoral process, probably by July. Those are his words. How is the United Nations seeing the peace reconstruction process in the Central African Republic?
Well, as you know, there are almost 10,000 forces on the ground, the military, the police, but also you have political staff which are helping the Central African Republic, the transition process. And currently they are organizing what they call local consultations at prefecture level. And at the end of those consultations, we will have the Forum of Bangui, hopefully by the end of March. And after the Forum of Bangui, we will go to the elections. Hopefully, those elections will enable that country to have a legitimate government which will pursue the reconciliation process. And throughout that evolution, the United Nations is helping, assisting in many ways, because the mission has a multi-dimensional task in that country.
Okay. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has simply been qualified as Africa's first world war. How are you going to re-engage? For the moment, you have some disturbances with Kinshasa in unblocking your differences, because it seems to me that the way the situation is today, you may be entering into a long standoff with President Kabila.
No, I don't think there is a standoff, actually. There is as you know, in Congo, in DRC Congo, there is a mission which is called MONUSCO, which task is, of course, to...
Kinshasa says that you people should be packing your bags to go, because you have given them instructions to give to them two generals which whose human rights conducts were not the best in the wars in the eastern part of the country. And Kinshasa says, we are not going to do that. And he says, okay, if guys are not ready to tow according to my will, bye-bye.
No, I'm not in a position, to answer that question, because my colleague Kobler, who deals with this matter directly, will be able to give all the dimension of this kind of misunderstanding. I think it's a misunderstanding rather than but I'm sure it will be sorted out. There are some other issues before, which were, of course, there were misunderstanding, but they were finally resolved.
Okay.
So I'm sure that...
let's talk peace construction in the region entirely. You have huge governmental experiences with the Senegalese government, with the United Nations, and with a respected and acclaimed intellectual background. Imagine that you had to think for the entire world and for the Central Africa region in particular. What would be your peace master plan mechanism?
Well, I think peace will come only through democracy. The world is changing, Africa must change. The type of governance we had 20 years ago, 50 years ago, is no longer adapted to the situation. We have millions of young people, well educated, who has no work. They aspire to a better world. We need a governance which stresses on the necessity to manage the diversity within each country. In our countries are multi-ethnic, multicultural, and we have to take that into account in managing. No group, no community should be left out, should be marginalized. We have also to take into account the fact that the nation states, as they have been built from a colonial legacy, can do it alone. Regional integration is a must. The Central Africa region has to come together. Government should be aware of the fact that they cannot succeed economically, they cannot stabilize socially, and at the end achieve anything sustainable if they don't come together at sub-regional level, at continental level.
Sure.
This is all about Agenda 2063.
You have a point, Mr. Bathily, but you know some of your viewers who accuse you that probably when you prescribe democracy as the modus operandi, they will tell you that, Mr. Bathily, if you look at Libya today, it's because we prescribe democracy, it's nearly not existing in the map of the world. They will tell you that, okay, maybe when you look at Iraq, when you look at Somalia, do you think that democracy fits all human existence?
Of course, democracy is about what? Democracy is about governance. Democracy is about how to manage public affairs.
Libya was a dictatorship under good governance, and now today it is a democracy under poor governance.
Yeah, but it's not. This is not democracy yet. What is happening in Libya is not. It's a process.
It is a process.
It's a process. You have terrorist groups in Libya today who are not advocating for democracy.
Absolutely.
You have groups who have nothing to do with democracy, and therefore it is a transition process which might take shorter or longer time, depending on the history of each country.
Experts, intelligence, military, political, diplomatic, the academia conclude that for you to have an end to terrorism across the world, if terrorism enters a particular zone in the world, it is at least 10 to 20 years. When you hear people like Paul Biya say Boko Haram must be eradicated, that in absolute terms, when you hear people like Idris Debis quoting Chinese historic figure Yu Tseng saying that, okay, you start a war, you end up losing the war. What time frame do you give from a United Nations perspective that the populations can say Boko Haram is over? Is it possible to put it over?
That's difficult to say. It might be eradicated militarily soon, I hope, but at the same time, the effects, the consequences of destruction brought about by Boko Haram might take even maybe generation. Because the level of destruction of society, the moral destruction, not to talk about the economic dimension of it, might take much longer. Because the rift created by the operations of Boko Haram between father and son, within the families, within the societies of the same village, the same area, which might take much longer, unfortunately.
A special representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations to Central Africa, Abdoulaye Bathily, thanks very much for accepting to be guest on Globe Watch from CRTV.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you.